Solutions. Textura is the leading provider of collaboration and productivity tools for the construction industry. Our solutions serve all construction industry professionals across the project lifecycle, from takeoff, estimating, design and pre-qualification to bid management, submittals, lead management, and payment. My name is Kevin McCluskey, and I will be your moderator for today's presentation. Also online with me is Lauren Masser. Lauren is one of our client services managers here at Latista, and will be walking you through the presentation today. She will be discussing the surprising cost of inefficiency and how to build and quantify the case for using a construction field management solution. We'll take some time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions you might have. If you have questions throughout the presentation, go ahead and enter them into the questions chat panel on the right side of your screen, and we'll try to cover as many questions as we can in the time window we have today. With that said, I'd like to introduce Lauren Masser.
Thanks, Kevin. I want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon as we talk about the cost of inefficiency and how you can offset this with a cloud-based technology solution. We wanted to start with a poll question and ask, what processes are paper-based in your organization today? QA/QC inspections, punch list, safety inspections, commissioning? Are there any others? To answer the question, simply click on one of the answers on your screen. We'll give everyone a few seconds to answer, and then we'll show the audience the results. So let's go ahead and show the results. All right. Okay, so as we can see, a majority are talking about how they're doing their punch list with paper and pencil. What would be very interesting to know is, since a lot of you had put in there, 47% of you are also using other processes. So if it's possible, please put what that process is in that question area and just prompt it by saying others, colon, or semicolon, then that answer. All right. Well, we work with a wide range of clients whose construction values vary greatly, but we did some math on a 12-month, $15 to $20 million job. What we found using this range as a scenario was that if a project manager spends just 1 hour a day managing communication around deficiencies using paper and pencil, he spends 20 hours per month, or conservatively, $24,000 over the 12 months. And that's just the project manager. Every superintendent, project engineer, and trade contractor involved in this process faces the same inefficiencies: outdated versions of spreadsheets, miscommunications, and missed opportunities. And that's without thinking about the cost of missed documentation or photos when you need it. So if you think about it, your pencil is really costing you $24,000. All right, so let us explain why. So how can your organization cut down on the surprising cost of inefficiencies? During today's webinar, that's exactly what we're going to discuss. We'll look at the construction costs and benefits to help you better understand what inefficiencies you may be experiencing in your current construction process, and we'll shed some light on what type of technology is out there to help potentially eliminate these costs, and then finally estimate the potential cost savings. Ever hear this one? This is the way we've always done it. But the reality of business today is you need to have a competitive edge wherever you can get it. Finding ways to decrease cost and time or increase productivity is not a luxury. It's the only way you're going to stay in business. Or how about this one? It's faster for me to write it down on a piece of paper. And my answer to that is, for who? For one person, perhaps, at that exact moment in time, but that leads him or her to handing over that piece of paper to someone else to get that into an Excel list and then email it out and track responses from each stakeholder: subcontractor, general contractor, architect, commissioning agent. The list goes on and on. Yes, it has been done this way, but it isn't efficient, and your competitors have caught on to that already. Look, evolution is simply a part of business, and those who think doing it the old way is enough will be left standing on the sidelines. just look at how business of our culture has evolved even in the past 20 years or so. In 2000, the Electronic Signatures and Global and National Commerce Act was passed recognizing electronic signatures as legally binding. The boss is out of town and can't sign off on the contract. Not anymore. In 2001, Software as a Service, or SaaS, was born, allowing businesses to leverage software without having to also buy all the hardware or worry about upgrades and hire full-time employees just to maintain everything. In 2003, electronic field management solutions were introduced. In 2008, the first smartphone was released, and in 2010, the iPad followed. The impact of tools like these is revolutionary in the way we conduct our lives, let alone our business today. And if you're not using these types of technology in your work today, ask yourself if your competition is. Of course, pencil and paper are cheap. Even if you have to print tons of documents, it's not all that expensive. So how can you put a price tag on an old process? Start by identifying the specific process you're targeting. For example, a lot of our clients tell us that building, sharing, and maintaining a punch list is painful and slow, right up until the point when you're trying to close out the project. So let's take the punch list as an example. Gather some basic metrics. How long is my project? How often do I do this process? And how many times will I do it over the life cycle of the project? What are the steps and how long do they take? How many people are involved in this process? What is the approximate cost for these resources? What resources are consumed each time this process is executed? And how long is the find-fix cycle? In general, these metrics don't require extreme precision. You should bring conservative numbers to your board when trying to advocate for investments in new technology, giving you the ability to undercommit and overdeliver to them. So let's quantify cost a bit. First, resources. There are the consumable resources that you use in completing your tasks: paper, printing, postage, etc. They don't tend to be huge cost drivers, but they are often the easiest to quantify. Next, the time or labor costs. This equals the number of resources times the hourly cost of those resources times the number of hours spent on that activity over the life cycle of the project. 3, if one resource spends 1 hour a day on punch list related work and does 5 days a week for a year, he or she spends about 240 hours on this task. If my resource costs $100 an hour, I spent $24,000 just in labor costs for that one individual. And how about calendar time? Often it's easy to quantify the opportunity here, right? Especially if contracts are binding or working has incentives or penalties predefined on that contract. But it's difficult to know how much you can improve. We suggest setting the bar low, say 1 to 2% savings for the duration of the project. That's 1 week on a 1-year project. So what would 1 week mean to you? How about completing the entire project 1 week early? This means savings on resources on an entire project for a full week. 1 week less of safety concerns and potential for litigation. These are real savings and efficiencies you're gaining. Now let's talk about risk. Risk reduction represents a huge value on a large project, but it's often ignored because it's too difficult to quantify the value. Here are 2 easy ways to establish risk reduction value. First, identify the biggest risk in terms of pure dollar value. A small reduction in the likelihood of this risk being identified can have big impact. Secondly, identify the risks that come up most frequently. A small reduction in that frequency can often yield a big dollar benefit. Here are some examples. What is the cost of performing work based on an outdated spec? How often does it happen? What is the impact of incomplete or missing documentation when you need it? And what is the cost of payment delays due to work not being completed on time? If you're having trouble putting these situations into numbers, your firm's CFO or head of risk may be resources in helping you quantify these values. And let's not forget reputation, right? Reputations are a funny thing. A good one tends to be made over a long period of time. You slowly build up credibility with your peers, subs, and with your clients. But as hard as it is to build a good reputation, it doesn't take much to get a bad one. Firms that wish to set a current state baseline for these metrics often use data such as number of referrals, or a metric that measures repeat business versus new business. Your business case may treat this category as qualitative or anecdotal. So now that you understand where your biggest costs and risks are, you have a roadmap to your heaviest hitters, right? As you evaluate solutions for process improvements, focus on these areas. These are your low-hanging fruit. Find a way to impact those processes and process steps that are the real cost drivers, and you'll see immediate impacts. When you're looking for solutions, think about them in these terms. Automate or eliminate the most costly tasks that you're doing daily. This is the heavy hitter mentality. Most software solutions can do a lot of things, but keep your eye on the prize. Your solution reduce your costs and time to market. Can it? Flex to the way you work, rather than imposing their process on you. Don't let any software or technology change your process. The technology should work for your process. Extend solutions to every place you need them. This means if an inspection is done on the job site out in the field, make sure your solution can work out in the field and not just in the trailer. Support your team with resources and best practices to help you get the benefit, not just the technology. Today we often think technology is the holy grail, but without support, technology is nothing but a shiny coin. And foster adoption by providing best-in-class ease of use. Simply put, if no one's using the solution, it's not helping you anyway. And one of the main barriers to adoption is ease of use. Provide insight through reporting and dashboards so you can measure, monitor, and drive the process improvements. If you can't measure it, you can't know how you're doing. And know your own uplines, right? Your owners and your stakeholders are going to want to know how you're doing. Make sure you have that information for them. In step 2, we quantified the costs you have. This gave you a tool to assess the value of any given improvement. In step 3, we helped identify specific targeted solutions, aspects, and specific improvements that you believe are achievable. So now let's do the math. Let's take a look at a couple examples. Can I eliminate 20 minutes of administrative time from the punch list process for 3 resources each day on a 1-year project? If so, what's the benefit? 3 resources times 20 minutes times 250 workdays per year times $100 an hour equals $24,000. 2, can I finish my 24-month project 2% faster by driving faster issue resolution at every stage? 24 months times 2% equals a half a month or 2 weeks of saved time and money. Just remember that even after you have the numbers ready to present, there's also the human element, right? We hear about this quite often from our clients. They tell us that their buying technology can be scary, and we get it. You're listening to a sales pitch from a software vendor, and the sales guy brings in his technical guru to dazzle you with benefits, technology, XYZ. He's throwing around acronyms like candy from a piñata, and you have no idea what he's talking about. Then they show you all the bells and whistles they offer, and they seem more excited about it than you are. When this happens, just take a deep breath and focus on what you know. If you know why you're buying, what process you're improving, what results you expect to achieve, and how you'll measure them, you're on the path to success. At the end of the day, you're solving a business problem that you know very well. Technology is just a means to an end. How can you do better on the job, cheaper, and faster? So I hope I've given you some things to think about when it comes to your current process and the use of technology. Our goal here was to help you look at how you're doing business today and see where efficiencies could be gained. If you would like to see how Latista can help your organization, contact us at the email address in front of you or visit the website at www.latista.com for more information. That brings us to the end of our presentation today, and now we want to answer some of your questions. So I'll pass it back to Kevin.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. We will now take some time to answer any questions you have. Please type them into the chat pane on the right side of your screen, and we will answer what we can get to on the call. If we don't get to your questions during the webinar, we will follow up afterwards via phone or email. So let's see. Let's go through a couple of questions here. I've got a couple up front. So Lauren, what do you do if your job sites do not have Wi-Fi or internet connectivity available to them?
Well, Latista allows you to work offline and later sync when you have internet access. So at the job site, you would enter in your issues, take pictures, markups, whatever else you need to do offline state. And then when you get back to the trailer or maybe even back home or to a Starbucks or anywhere that has an internet connection, you'd sync that data and that would automatically go back to the cloud. So then you could use that information later, and so could all of your stakeholders, owners, architects could have a view into anything that you're doing actually out in the field.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks. And I see another one. How do you deal with a team that doesn't want to use the new technology?
That's a good question, and typically there's no single answer to adoption, but what we've seen work with our client base is taking a multi-pronged approach and doing it in a consistent manner. Things like executive sponsorship and buy-in, adequate training, definitely, and explaining why the new technology is beneficial, kind of like what we were doing here today. But kind of a combination of all of these help, right? Consistency with the message is key. We've also seen general contractors include the required use of technology as part of their contracts. Overall, you're trying to build this into the culture of your company. So there is going to be a learning curve, but once adopted, the benefits are quick to see.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. And I think that might be the end of our questions. You see anything?
No, we have no other questions. Should we give people just another minute to kind of type things in here? And if not, of course, like we said, you can go ahead and contact us. Is there a demo of the software view? From Ranty. So yes, there is. So you have access. If you want to go to if you go into your iPad or into your iPhone, right? So you have the two. You can download the app. Now, first it's going to ask you for some questions, right? This is so that we can capture this and get in touch with you for like real answers. But once you actually, put in your first name and last name and contact information, you have access to a demonstration, right? It's basically all the tools there so that you can kind of play around with it. It already has data there, so you can kind of see what it looks like. And so it has QA/QC, punch list, commissioning, and safety. And you already have some forms preloaded for you in different types of formats. So you can get an idea as to how this would work with you.
Great. Perfect. Perfect. So I think that about wraps it up on the questions. Obviously, if anyone has any further, you can reach us by any of the contact information here. So I want to say thanks to everybody for joining us. If you have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. As mentioned earlier, you can contact us at our email, which is latistainfo@texturacorp.com, or by phone at 800-941-8941, or simply visit our website, which is www.latista.com for more information. Again, thank you, and we certainly hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you.